as people primates that I share DNA with, the Homo communio, I'm a people primate as well, but I'm claiming to be a self-actualized Homo sapien, meaning walking the talk in my priorities and in my actions and choices of the definitions of sentience and sapience. Is, as a culture appearant, because I have no choice, is I post screenshots sometimes. I don't always read what they are or say what they are, but this time I will. Is it a coincidence that I sent this email yesterday? I'll tell you the time, Pacific time, and there were changes where the BCGEU had decided to sit down for non-binding, mediation. And, I'm hearing a CBC report today, and the lady is saying that in the meantime, the government is forced to hire a contractor at 3 times the wages. Well, if it's 3 times the wages, you should maybe, if you're trying to get more money for your members, you should maybe recommend they become independents. And you don't do that. It's not really about money. And living wages, it's getting harder to achieve that. I don't think most collective agreements will do it. Now, some of my issues in the last time with the BCGEU, because there's been some for about a decade, is they couldn't settle on which collective agreement to cite when I was in the beginning of complaint procedures with them against an employer. But I said, we've got a conflict of interest here. Some of my complaints are with you, the BCGEU, that they weren't finishing collective agreements. They were outdated. Then they say, oh, yeah, no, we're going with the new one. You don't have access to it. We're still working on it. Like these kind of things shows me that they're not motivated to make an effort to even stop violating my human rights, the BCGEU. So I would prefer being an independent because I definitely have the motivation and skill sets to fight for my human rights, including most of the time fighting the BCGEU. There's been many jobs I decided not to apply for because the BCGEU is involved. And it's not because it's a public servant job. They're so everywhere. It's like a biker gang that has devolved our culture. And I like the idea of unions, but I don't know of any unions in Canada, I haven't researched deeply all of them, that actually don't play a part in the systemic issues that they claim exist because there's not enough money going to them, right? So what I want to know is maybe sometimes how much did a butterfly effect of my own cultural repair work solo, because I can't get CBC to, notice my existence, or if they do, they're scared of it. They're not ready to go there, right? They're not ready to discuss the reality of the human condition in Canadian cultures and societies, proto-societies. So it's sad to see this. Like, for example, yesterday I wrote an email saying, and it's a job that's been advertised for a while and they want to hire ASAP. And it's a BCGEU. So I avoid most of them for many years now, but sometimes there's something I really like or I need because, poverty is affecting my health in ways I've documented living in BC, for example. So I'll read you the email if I get an answer later that'll say, oh no, this is a union job and we can't do that. Then how does an employer negotiate with a union that has taken it over and that is at the root of most of the issues? So it's like you shouldn't negotiate with employers as much as BCGEU members should negotiate with their unions. Say, let's find out how much you screwed us over, whether it's intentionally or not, because you've really screwed things up. And there's systemic issues that even as members and non-members, we suffer, with the health authorities, with the education system, with the public service provincially. Like you've just devolved our proto-societies, and I'm pretty sure unions are not supposed to be doing that. They're supposed to protect our worker rights with employers, but it seems employers don't take advantage of people as much as, the general inequalities that grow through greed, for example, and not necessarily through worker rights being violated. Because I think when you find the BCGEU, like, for example, the Coast Mountain College, okay, there was a job that I applied for that wasn't union related. It was a wellness officer. And I did awesome in interview, and I had hopes, and there was 4 people who were almost all in tears. And because they could relate to what I was sharing, I wanted to work on. And yet, who gets the job? The wife, who's almost finished becoming a doctor, of one of the high officials. So it's not a union thing, but it's, for me, it's a worker right violation because there was nepotism, and it was somebody that didn't specialize in mental illness like I do or cultural repair. And it was also, and then the union would say, we don't want to hear that. Well, if you don't want to hear that, then you don't want to look at yourselves in the mirror, and I shouldn't take you seriously when you think you've done all you could for me in the union position, when I have a recording that says, that's too much, let's start with this. And you fail at this when you should have succeeded at a tiny portion of what were. And you insisted on taking on human rights things as you're violating my human rights. You know, like you want to micromanage everything, and you're not competent enough to even do many of the simple things that you're supposed to do as a union. So can you imagine how many jobs over the years I've skipped because BCG has infiltrated it? You know, and therefore it will make it impossible for me, let's say, to be child-centered, learner-centered, patient-centered, patron-centered, because the BCGEU makes it that you have to be a good sheep as a staff much more than your employer makes you do, right? Your employer allows some individuality, but the BCGEU doesn't. The BCGEU wants everybody to go to work and collect their pay with minimal resistance. Cultural repair requires resistance, so the BCGEU is not a good fit for that. So people, employers, try to say, hey, you know what is we will also start offering jobs that are independents. And maybe we'll pay a little bit less, but you know, you won't be stuck, let's say, with a union who wants you to go on strike for their failures over the decades, but doesn't provide insurance in the fees they collected from you to compensate for your pay when you're out there on strike.